Okay, let's get started then. Matthew will join us and I'll start out just by telling you a little bit about the school. I'll introduce those of us who will be presenting to you today. So my name is Sasha Esklund. I am the Director of Enrollment Management here at St. Joseph Prep. And we are really excited to talk with families from Carroll School. I know we've developed a relationship with Carroll School over the years. And I'm new to it because I'm new to St. Joseph Prep. I started over the summer, so I'm just launching into my first season here, but it's been wonderful to see the enthusiasm from Carroll, and we're eager to, just talk about what the connections are, what the challenges might be for students who are coming from Carroll and how we deal with them. So let me just share my screen with you. I'm going to go back and forth between sharing because I do want us to sort of talk and everything and not just stare at slides, but we'll do it for a moment. So here we go. And go back. This is who we are. We are St. Joseph Prep. So we're located in Brighton. And we have students who come to us from all over the place, and 40 plus, actually we were saying, more than 40 communities. And we have students coming from the South. They come from Framingham and Brockton. We have a number of students who are coming from Stoneham right now. They're really just all over, up in Malden, Everett, and out to the west as well. And they get to us by all kinds of means. There's public transportation available right nearby. We have the commuter rail, and we have bus lines, and we also have students who are carpooling with other families. So that's something we can talk about if people are curious about the particular ways of getting in and out of Brighton. I know people are coming from some distances, and we have ways of accommodating that, and we have kids who do the commutes. So let me is Matthew here yet? Not quite seeing. Yes, he is. Okay, so let me just introduce all of us. So as I said, I'm Sasha Esklund. I'll stop sharing for a moment. And Matthew is here. He can wave hello, say hello. So Matthew Genitelli is our learning specialist, and he will talk about our Academic Enrichment Center that provides learning supports for our students who need learning support, and the ways that programming is fully integrated into the school. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the community that we have here at St. Joseph Prep. And we also have a parent and a student, Kristen Fitzgerald, who's waving, and Julia Fitzgerald up in the corner there. Wave, Julia. Julia's a senior here at St. Joseph Prep, and she attended Carroll School. So Kristen and Julia have a wonderful perspective on what the transition can be like from Carroll, and just what this community has been like for Julia, and they will address that soon. But I just want to say that, for myself, coming into the school as somebody new to the school, I had heard, and, I believed that the community was strong, but I've been blown away by the depth of that, of the truth of that. And I'll just tell you one thing, I'm organizing student ambassadors for our open house right now. And so I requested volunteers. I got over 90 volunteers. We have a little over 200 students in the school right now. And so it's a really significant number. I've actually never seen anything like that in a school that I've been in before. And I polled those students and asked them to tell me a little bit about the school, since I'm here learning, at the beginning of the year. I wanted to know what this place meant to them. And I just want to read you a few of those, just so you can have a sense of what the kids are saying broadly across the school. So here's one. At SJP, everyone knows everyone, and everyone is supportive no matter what grade. Take last year's pep rally, for example. The gym was full of so much cheering and energy, and it was such a fun space to be in. Each grade was so enthusiastic, there was never a dull moment. And when the juniors won the basketball shot competition, the whole class ran onto the court to celebrate and threw the winner in the air. It showed how enthusiastic the people at the school are. And another one, the SJP moment for me is our Multicultural Day. Multicultural Day is a day like no other. Everyone embraces their culture and shares it with the entire community. You learn about different countries' history, try their signature food and drinks, play games, listen to their music, dance traditional dances, and even get to see some clothing from the countries their families are from. You get fully immersed. SJP shows its true colors of diversity on this day. It is an event loved by staff and students, and I cannot wait for it to happen again next year. So the students, I didn't ask them to talk about community, but I would say that almost every single one used that word in their responses to my question. So it really does demonstrate just how central that is to the experience here. And the size of the school is central to that. We're an intentionally small school, so we're a little over 200 right now. We sort of vacillate between 210, 205, 250. We go up and down a little bit, but we are in that range. So we're looking at class sizes, grade levels that are 50 to 60 students. And the students get to know one another very well. They are known by each other, and they get to know their teachers as well. So that community extends into the classroom, certainly. As Matthew will talk about some of the academic supports, but one of the important ones that fosters that relationship between the teachers and the students is that every teacher is in his or her classroom for an hour after school. So they hold office hours every day. And students are invited to come in, just drop by if they'd like to ask questions. Teachers might suggest that they come by to look at something more closely with them. And they're able to offer that one-on-one attention in that context. So the teachers tend to really know what's happening with their students, what the challenges are, and where they can be pushed, and also what their real strengths are, and so what they might be capable of. And that's important too, is to see a student and say, this student is going this far, but I think they can actually go this far. Let's find an avenue for that to happen. So that attention is really important. Our class sizes hover around 16 or 17 in a classroom. That gets smaller as some of the classes are more specialized later on. So in an AP class, there might be, 8 to 10 students. I know in some of the studio art upper level classes, there are 6 students. So there's this really intimate environment in the art studio sometimes and in the other classes. But that 16 allows for great discussion. It allows for the teachers to know them. As a former teacher myself, I always found that 15, 16 was the ideal number because you could really get, a conversation going. You could get a lot of different perspectives, and you were able to know the students well. So let me hand it over to Matthew. So Matthew will give you an overview of the Academic Enrichment Center. I'll step back in at various points. And at the end of our presentation, I will talk about the application process, and you can feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll address them later. All right, Matthew, take it away.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So like Priya said, my name is Matthew Genitelli. I am our Academic Enrichment Center, or we call it the AEC coordinator, and also the learning specialist here. This is my second year. I come from Landmark School, so I know the Carroll School and the Carroll program really, really well. I dealt with and lived with a lot of individuals from the Carroll School in my 5 years at Landmark prior to here. Speaking specifically about what we do, so our AEC program is really what drew me to work here. It's kind of this catch-all support program that's here for students that have a varying different degree of learning differences. We service students that have that prototypical ADHD, dyslexia, needing some additional support. And then we also work with that have some of that more social, emotional, anxiety, test-taking issues, or students that just need a little extra help along the way. We kind of have that catch-all being an independent school. We don't need to meet certain parameters. And that's what really drew me here. It's not an additional fee, which is something that I really, really thought was amazing. Coming from a background in special education, I thought that was incredible that anyone who's at our school who applies and who meets our certain parameters for needing that support system in the AEC, they get it. And how it works is each individual student at St. Joseph Prep has a study hall, right? They have that in their schedule. Our students just come to us during their study hall. They don't get pulled out of any classes. They're not missing anything curriculum-wise. It's no different than any other student on their schedule. Their studies are just with us. It's a little bit smaller. It's with myself, and we also have a full-time math specialist who's with me as well. And we work on whatever your students' learning needs are. At the beginning of the year, we write what we call AEC learning plans. Those are basically like an in-house 504, where I kind of look over any accommodations that they have previously. We'll look over any neuros, any IEPs, teacher recommendations, testing scores, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that. So any information you throw at me, I like to sift through and look at. And we write these learning plans that really talk about the accommodations that kids need. The basic ones that we really give out for pretty much anyone in the AEC is extended time on tests and quizzes, having the opportunity to take tests or quizzes in an alternative space up here in the Learning Commons area. It's a quieter, more intimate place where we can give a little bit of that reduction in that test taking anxiety. They're not hearing kids flipping over back and forth, looking around, seeing who's finished, who's not finished. None of that. It's a little bit more relaxed of an environment and really just fostering that space to work. We also have preferential seating, which we're now defining as where that student works best in that classroom. So not just the front of the room, but wherever that student is going to be most successful in the classroom, and working with teachers in figuring that out. PowerPoints and information, being available ahead of time or right near after class to help with that support. We currently are not providing notes. That's something that we've talked about, and I think fundamentally, especially for incoming freshmen, to really try to foster that skill and really push with that skill and being able to say, okay, here's the PowerPoint, you can take it off of the Google Classroom, and really helping them. Thursday and Friday, I'm doing a workshop with our freshmen right now that are in our AEC program on how to take notes, how to study for a test, because like every single freshman in the country, they just bombed their first bio quiz. And so we're really working, okay, this is how you studied previously, you didn't do well, how do we do that better for the next one? And so that's kind of what we do here. I really call it a catch-all, where we are here to stop a snowballing effect from getting larger. I'm checking grades every single day. We're checking in with the students every single day. Hey, you didn't do your homework assignment last night. How come? Did you not understand it? Did you forget it? Did you not write it down? Did you get in a fight with mom or dad last night, and so you were angry and shut the door and didn't want to get to it? Did you forget it at home? And we really unpack all of that and really take a big holistic approach to it. And our goal here in the AEC Center is to provide that support and to allow students to find how they learn best and really get to that. So by the time they get to senior year, like we're going to talk about with Julie in a moment, they're taking AP classes and they're doing really well in those AP classes, and they're feeling really successful as an individual and finding their own stride. And that can take some time. But that's really what we do here, is that we provide that support to be able to push through some of those barriers that are in their own way. And some things are here just in general inherently about our school that do that. Sasha already mentioned the office hours and our after school mandatory office hours. We call them ASPs, academic support plans. Those are for every single student, regardless of if they're in the AEC program or not, where once a week they have mandatory office hours where they go and check in with their teacher, going over specific things. I've taken over that program this year, and we're redefining it as support. So they're not just going and getting homework done, but they need to go with specific questions. The students come to check in with me before going to their teacher, and we go over, okay, what are you going to work on? Really, again, fostering that advocacy of not just showing up, but showing up in an active way, not a passive way. And the last thing I want to talk about quickly is language deferrals. Students that come to our school do need to take 3 years of a language. And what we do is we can get a deferral for the first year. So you're not going to take it freshman year. And that way you get an extra study hall. We do that with a lot of our students in the AEC program, where they have that extra year or that extra block in that first year to work through getting into high school, the differences of being in a high school, the challenges, and giving them that extra time. This year, what we've done with that second study hall is it's turned into a math study hall. So our AEC freshmen meet with the math specialist. That's in their schedule. They're meeting with them right now, actually. And what they do is he has all of them that are all in Algebra 1 together. So he can go over the test coming up, go over the homework that they just did, really kind of catches all and encompasses all of that. And that's really kind of at a baseline of what we do here in the AEC Center, is that real support system without modifying any curriculum. We accommodate to the best of our ability. And that's kind of the line that we tote, where every now and then I can kind of get into a class and talk to a teacher and say, hey, so-and-so needs X, Y, and Z. Let's figure that out. Let's make that work. But it's really that baseline accommodating, where helping students feel like they have the success there and just allowing them to get out of their own way in most cases. So that being said, I'm going to actually turn it over to Julia.
Matthew, just before we do that, could I just read a question to you? So somebody has asked just about how this preparation or sort of introduction to high school works when somebody comes in as a 10th grader. Are they getting that same kind of intro material that you're offering the 9th graders?
Yep, same thing. So again, it's all based on their schedule. So their study halls are not based on class. So right now, the group that I have, there's 3 juniors in there and 2 seniors. The class period before this, I had 4 freshmen and 4 sophomores. So they kind of all get that all at the same time. You know, as a new student coming into our school, they kind of automatically would be in that first couple of weeks to month or so would be on my radar of making sure that all that is up to date. And kind of that's also additionally, I think you could talk about that, Sasha, about the advisory program. And kind of that's where that catches all as well. And I kind of act as a secondary advisor to students in the AEC program anyway. So regardless if they're coming in freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, they're getting all of that with me. Do you want me to answer some of these questions in the chat or keep moving?
Why don't we go to Julia and then we can come back to some of those?
Perfect.
Right.
So Julia, why don't you just kind of talk about your experience coming in from Carroll, how it went, some things that went great, anything that didn't go great, any and all of that.
Yeah, so the adjustment to high school is obviously a big transition. Just the amount of work you get in high school is obviously a lot more. So one of my in biology freshman year, that was definitely like the hardest class for me freshman year. It's just a big adjustment. The amount of tests and quizzes and assessments, projects you get, it's definitely a lot more than you would get at Carroll or any middle school. But then again, like the resources SJP has to offer, like after school hours. So every teacher is like required to stay after school for an hour. Definitely really helpful. I used that almost every day my freshman year after biology class. I would stay after with Dr. B and he would work with me, whether I stayed for 15 minutes on asking questions or whether I stayed for an hour or longer. He would sit with me and really make sure I would understand all the information and that I went away feeling confident and ready for like any assessments or quizzes. So that was definitely really helpful. And also the AEC, like Mr. Genitelli talked about, but the AEC was really helpful for me if there was ever a time I needed to take an assessment or finish it because I have extra time. I could come up to the AEC and finish that assessment if I couldn't finish it with my teacher or if it was too distracting in the room to finish the assessment, which was also really helpful. And like just advisory your freshman year is a really helpful block. Your advisors really make sure that you're not just getting acclimated to the community like academic wise, but that you have friends and you're not just spending all your time doing schoolwork and you're staying on top of your work and organized, but you have like a life outside of academics and with a good friend group. And so that was really helpful my freshman year. My advisor, Miss Wilson, she helped me stay organized and on top of my work. She would sit with us. She would like make individual meetings with each of us. And we would go over any work we had to finish, anything that we're stressed about, and if we needed anything from her. So that was really helpful.
Julia, can you talk a little bit about how other students view the AEC or kids that are not in the AEC? Do you think you're viewed differently at all?
Definitely not. My friends sign up for the LC. They want to come to the LC. So I have one of my studies in the LC, but other students can sign up. There's like the AEC, and then outside of that, there's like chairs that you can sit in and study. So my friends come up and sign up, and I can work with them if I want, or I can stay in the AEC. So definitely not like a stigma around being in the LC. Everyone's super supportive at SJP and just wants everyone to do the best, really. So there's no stigma around being in the AEC or not.
Shall we pass it over to Kristen? I think it makes sense to have Kristen come in after Julia speaks and just sort of describe, Kristen, what you have seen in terms of the growth of your daughter and the transition from Carroll and what has helped her to be successful here at St. Joseph Prep.
Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here with all of you. I know what an anxiety-provoking process this is, and you want to make sure your Carroll students are ending up in just a special place as Carroll is. And now we're in the same process, but just on a different level with Julia trying to figure out colleges. So I can empathize with where you're all at. And for us, it's just been amazing, the growth in Julia from the time that she transitioned from Carroll into SJP to where she is now. And I do have to give a shout out to her that she is now president of the National Honor Society at SJP, which is something that I'm just so proud of her hard work for. So she had a very untraditional route to SJP, I will say. Carroll did an amazing job giving us the matrix of all the high schools that may be a good fit for her based upon where she was at in 8th grade at Carroll. And Julia actually started at a different high school. We are from Newton, and we had 2 boys that went to Newton North High School, one with a learning difference, one without. And we decided that based on my older son's experience, who did have a learning difference there, that a smaller school would have been a better fit for him to get the services he needed. So we knew that we wanted a small, really tight-knit community. We had pulled Julia out of the Newton Public Schools starting in 5th grade against her wishes at the time. So when she had a strong voice in high school, going to high school of where she thought she wanted to go, we listened to her and empowered her with what her strong voice was saying at the time. So she started at another school, high school, and I actually came home from work after her second day of that high school, and I found her in the fetal position on the kitchen floor, crying, hugging our dog, and she's smiling, but at the time my heart just sank. I mean, coming from such a safe community where she was so successful at Carroll, to see her like that as a parent was incredibly emotional. And my husband and I had always thought SJP was the best fit for her. I think maybe the religious factor had something to do with potentially her decision of why she didn't maybe want to go. I'm not sure, but we're not religious, but we thought the AEC would have been the best fit and the small community at SJP. So the next morning we got on the phone with SJP, and my husband and I went down and we told them exactly what had happened, and they found a spot for her. And at the first school, she was put in all CP classes. She was not put in any honors classes, and really the lowest level of classes. And at SJP, they looked at all the work she had done at Carroll and said, you know what, she can handle honors in some of these classes. And they put her in the exact right balance of honors classes. So she went the next day and she was very nervous because all the kids had already started. So they had already built foundations. But it was such a welcoming community. I cannot say that enough. It was so nurturing, just like Carroll had been. They embraced her warmly, and she just hit the ground running and really never, ever looked back. She utilized every tool they had to offer. The AEC is an amazing place, and going to the office hours every day after school, she's such a hard worker. And I give her credit. She had a foreign language waiver and was very nervous to take a foreign language. And SJP suggested that a lot of kids from Carroll had had success in Latin. And so she decided that she would take Latin. And I think she will tell you that it is her absolute favorite class. It is a passion of hers. She really understands the morphology of words now, and she is able to really utilize the skills from her Latin class in all of her other classes. She's now taking 4 AP classes this year and a dual enrollment of Latin at UMass Boston, which is something, had you asked me freshman year if my daughter would be thriving like this, I never ever would have believed it. She has been an incredibly hard worker. The curriculum is rigorous, but she's put in the time, but it's very balanced. She is a very well-rounded student. She is in a lot of clubs at SJP. She's on the swim team. She has set school records on the swim team. She's on the tennis team. She is really, really just thriving, and it's a safe environment for her. She feels similar to Carroll, where she can find her voice, she can express who she is, and it's embraced and welcomed. And it's a very diverse community, both ethnically and religiously, and everybody is welcomed with open arms. I can't stress that enough. It is like just a beautiful extension of Carroll, and she is just thriving. So, but if anybody has any questions at all about specifically about transition or anything, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you, Julia. I think we'll certainly turn to you again in our conversation, but I wanted to touch on a couple of things that came up and what the two of you said. One of those things is the levels of our classes. So we have a philosophy of 4 pillars here at SJP, and those pillars are academic excellence, authentic community, meaningful engagement, and dynamic innovation. So in the academic excellence field, we do have 3 class levels. So we have college prep, CP, we have honors classes, and we have AP classes. And so we have students moving between those classes. We have them going in at different levels all the time. We have 13 AP classes. We have an intensive college preparation program. Students study for and prepare for the SAT and the ACT in their junior year. And we enable students to be the motivated, adaptable learners that they can be. We also have something that's special is our STEAM program. So we were founded 10 years ago as a STEAM school. And what that has meant is that we have a 4-year STEAM program for our students. 9th graders come in and they choose between computer science, studio art. So STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Maybe you've heard that. Some of our 8th graders sometimes are like, what is that A? So art is in there too, because they're making, right? So the students are getting into these labs and studios and they're using their hands, they're building things, they're doing projects together, working collaboratively. And so that first year it's studio art, computer science, and there's an option for computer assisted design, which is CAD. And so that means that they're designing things on computers, working together, and then 3D printing and putting them together. So I've heard some good stories about like the whole class is building a building and the different small groups are creating different parts of that building. And so they're also excited, they've finished their piece of the building and then they print it out on the 3D printer and put it together. And it doesn't quite fit together. And they have to go back to the computers and work on building that thing again. So it involves all of this teamwork and just group work. In sophomore year, every student takes STEAM 2 with our teacher, Nia Gibson. And she has developed this class to reach across disciplines. And she introduces students to environmental science, to robotics, some engineering, does more computer programming, a whole range of things. And she has them working on projects, as groups as well. I was just talking with her the other day about the robotics section of this class. And she has students read about robots, sort of historical science fiction about robots, discuss how robots have been imagined in our world, what the fears are, they're either going to take over or they're just going to make our lives so easy that we don't have to do anything. And then really think through, what they really are and how they really function in our world right now. And then students do a project in which they either write a comic book about a robot or they research a robot, like an actual one that exists, and they will present those projects to the class. So it's really a range of things. And then in 11th and 12th grade, they have access to electives. So a student might say, I loved environmental science. I loved that, getting outside and looking at things with Miss Gibson. And so they might elect to take an environmental science class. We also have a great robotics team with Miss Gibson, and they compete every year. They work together. At our open house on October 23rd, the robot will be here. So students are often really interested in seeing the robot in action, and some robotics club members will be there demonstrating that. I wanted to touch too on the diversity of the school. So diversity plays out in all different ways here. So there's diversity of background, diverse socioeconomic, identity backgrounds, diversity of geographic locations, as we have said, and also diversity of religion. So we have, we are a Catholic school, and we're sponsored by the Sisters of St. Joseph. And about 60%, 65% of our students are Catholic and are practicing Catholic students. And students do take a theology class all 4 years. And that is a theology class. It's not a religion class. So what that means is students aren't being prepared for sacraments or, confirmation, but in fact are really learning what the history of this belief system is, how it fits into the world today, how their own beliefs fit into the world around them and the society around them. So it's a space for discussion of values and, sort of what that looks like in the real world. And I've heard wonderful things from Catholic and non-Catholic students alike about those classes and those conversations where they can really bring their own sort of beliefs into the conversation and can shape those beliefs. I think the value of a faith-grounded education is that discussion of values, and that every student is leaving the school with a sense of what their own values are, having really sort of wrestled with that and thought about it and discussed it with other students and with adults. So that's something that's needed in this world, is to walk into the world with a sense of your own moral compass and how you act on it, and how others do too. What else was I going to touch on? Oh, advisory. So we've heard a little bit about the advisory. Every student is a member of an advisory group. So they go in 9th grade to a group with a teacher, and that group stays the same throughout the 4 years. Obviously, there can be students who come in who are new, but it's essentially the same advisory group from 9th grade through 12th grade. And this is another thing that was mentioned in some of those polls and the answers to those questions is people say, I come to my advisory every day and it's like a reunion. Every day we're just like so excited to see each other and fill each other in on what's going on in our lives. So it's a space where students can, process what's happening in their days with one another and with a teacher who knows them, again, very well, who they can turn to with questions and any struggles that they're having too. So that tends to be a really supportive space for the students. And let's see, why don't we turn to the questions a little bit? Matthew, maybe there are a couple that you can take that address the AEC.
Yep, I've kind of written down some of them. So the first one I saw was about speech to text. That's not an accommodation I would necessarily write unless it was 100% necessary, but that would be something that would be welcomed for the individual to use, obviously. Our goal is to be able for students to not necessarily use them as a crutch, but use it as support. And so that's something on an individual basis that we would look at with the student, be meeting with the student, looking at how it's worked for them in the past and really use it as that support system. So that goes for a lot of students that if there are skills that they've learned at Carroll that work or, at Carroll, outside of Carroll that have worked well for them, we're never in the mindset of eliminating those. It's really being able for the student to use them and work with them. Like I said, I come from Landmark School where, the scaffolding of assignments, the scaffolding of how to write, all the different tricks and tips along the way, from the writing assignments in class to making sure that you're dressing appropriately for the weather in the morning and all that EF that comes along with that. That's kind of everything that we really try to work for and work towards. And then there's another question about like being in an advanced math class and still being in the AEC. I think Julia is a great example of that, where, last year was my first year with her and she kind of came in, would check in and would sit independently and do her work on AP classes and then still would come and ask for help on this assignment or that assignment. Julie, can you pipe in real quick? What math class are you currently in right now?
I'm in AP Calculus this year. I'm taking AB, not BC. But yeah, it's definitely really helpful. So there's the math tutor this year, who's extremely helpful. I know I definitely use him in my studies whenever I'm confused or preparing for a test. Really anything, he can answer the question and he'll work with you, he'll sit with you on that. So that's definitely a really helpful tool that the AEC has that I utilize in my study blocks, preparing for math and just making sure I understand all the information. Even if I'm not confused, if there's a problem on a homework I just don't understand or whatever it is, he will sit with you and help you. that's really definitely a plus of the AEC.
And so perfect, Julia. And so that's, again, she's in an AP class as a senior. He's helping with her, and he does something that I can't do. He can jump from being in CP Algebra 1, helping and supporting those students, and going right up to our senior AP level and helping him. He's here every single day. His name is Mr. Malbacker. He works with me here in the AEC. On top of that, we have another math tutor that's here 2 to 3 times a week, Mr. McKenna, who I know Julie's also worked with in the past. And he's the same kind of way, where they just have this and very, very amazing skill of switching in between high level to basic level math and really providing that support. We have a group of freshmen right now who don't have that additional AEC study in math, so they just meet with me primarily. But he is also here for them to add support. He's here after school. Him and I work in tandem, in the AEC program to provide that support. I kind of joke, I'm like the language arts and EF guy, he's the math guy. And so together we would be the perfect person, but that's just not how our brains work. We're split down the middle on that. And also the freshman writing class. So we have freshman writing workshops are built into their schedule. So to kind of answer it quickly, the way our schedule works on different days, right? So we're on a different day. So if it's an E day, that class is meeting for either theology or English. That class is a writing workshop. So that entire day in that class period, for that class block, they're working on writing workshops, getting forward in that writing process. And that's for every single freshman across the board, AEC or not. We also do a lot of that long-term planning here in the AEC. I have a whole section of a whiteboard where I have freshmen through seniors, Monday through Friday, and every single Monday, I talk with them. Okay, what do we have going on this week? What are assignments due? What are tests or quizzes due? We have a long-term assignment. We talk about, okay, if it's due Friday, what are we doing today? Nothing. Nope, that's not the answer. Let's start building that scaffolding. Let's start working through that. We do all of that here in the AEC. I don't know.
Thanks, Matthew. I have a couple to respond to as well, and one for Kristen and Julia. So there's a question about extracurricular activities and what that sort of extracurricular life is like for students. And I can speak to that and then maybe turn to Julia too. You heard a little bit about what she does outside of her classes, but the athletics are big here, and we don't require sports, but about 85% of our students are involved in a sport. And what I hear most is about, again, the group of friends, the community, the ways that they just build relationships and supportive athletics teams for one another. So they love it. They're very involved. We have a no-cut policy. So every student can play a sport, can do whatever sport they want. We have varsity and JV teams. So a real range of skill levels and engagement in sports. And we also have many clubs. There are creative writing clubs. There's the Robotics Club. We have a mental health awareness club. This year, there's an American Sign Language club. And I'll say about that one, it was really prompted by students. So there was a student who wanted that. She wanted to have a club for ASL. And so she went to a teacher and found a teacher who would be willing to sponsor the class and who was excited about sponsoring the club, And they're doing it now, a bunch of kids are doing it and they're having a great time. So that's another thing about being a small school, is the flexibility that we have to engage students when they come to us with something. And they say, I'd really like to have this. We're often able to fill that for them. We also have step club, the dancers. We don't have cheer. So our step club often is performing at pep rallies and things like that. So we get dancing from them, and just a whole range of things. Maybe Julia has some more names of clubs that she wants to fill in that I'm missing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a part of the Mental Health Awareness Club, which is definitely one of my favorite clubs because it's not like an academically focused club. It's focused, like you can go there to Miss Bacon. She's the proctor for that club, and you can go and you can just color in the room. They do different cool activities, like you can write on a rock or a piece of paper and like you pass it around the school to different people. So there's like cool things like that, and to raise awareness for mental health. And there are other clubs at SJP. So my sophomore sophomore year, I was involved in Youth in Government, and that's a partnership with the YMCA. So that I wrote a bill. So that was definitely a cool thing to get involved in the government, and that was something I was really interested in. So SJP, if it's not like offered directly at SJP, there's like connections outside of SJP. Something I wish so I joined this year, I wish I was a part of it more years, is the Thai newspaper, which is, it comes out every month. There's different issues, and they just write about things that are going on in the school. My friend has been a part of it for all 4 years, and she loves it. There's a book club. So there's really a bunch of different clubs. There's student council. And as Miss Esklin said, there's a step club, which I love watching perform at the pep rallies. So in terms of sports, my freshman year, I did volleyball. And that was definitely one of my favorites because that's how I met a bunch of people my freshman year across different grade levels. And it was a really great like community, and everyone was super supportive. I had never played volleyball before. I was super bad at it, but it didn't matter. I met so many people. I was on the freshman team, and I met so many people across different grade levels in my grade that I'm still friends with to this day. And like my mom said, I'm a part of the swim and tennis team, which are also two great communities. And I've met people again in the swim from across different grade levels and in my grade. But the swim team, it's cool. We have a partnership, a co-op with Matanon. So I've met people from different schools too that I'm now great friends with. So there's definitely a bunch of opportunities at SJP to like go outside of the school and branch out, like in youth and government and in the swim team.
I hear there's a National Honor Society as well.
Oh yeah, how could I forget that one? So I'm part of the National Honor Society this year. I'm the president. So there are different service opportunities in the National Honor Society, so you have to apply to get in. But once you're in the National Honor Society, there's different service opportunities. So there's Angel Tree, which is they're all centered around service basically. So we partner with the sisters next door, and we like practice like service to the dear neighbor, which is their motto. So we donate supplies to Brighton High School, which is right down the street from us, and do a bunch of different service opportunities because there is a service requirement for NHS. It's additional 10 hours. So on top of the service that you do already at SJP.
Great, thank you. I think I'm going to turn now to the application process, and we'll go through that. And then if there's time for additional responses to questions, we'll do that. But I want to make sure to tell you about that process. So let me just share my screen once more. Just flip through some of these. So these were the pillars that I was telling you about. So here is our application process. We work through Ravenna. Many of you are already in Ravenna and have kind of, placed inquiries or signed up for our open house through Ravenna. So yes, the process is to complete the online application, which includes some written questions for both students and parents, to have records released from the school. So the transcript, attendance, there's a counselor's report that includes information about attendance and discipline. And then any neuropsych, IEP, or 504 plans that a student has can come in along with the application. It's helpful to us to see where students are going to be. And then a school report form from the principal or guidance office and teacher recommendations in both math and English. We also do take, for ninth graders, let me just go back here. So the HSPT or SSAT. So we do still require a test score for ninth graders coming in. We, either one is fine. If students are taking the SSAT at for other applications, they can submit that to us. If they want to take the HSPT, we do offer it here on November 5th. And it's a slightly different test. And I'll tell you, we require the test. We'd like to see, what students are doing. And we often use that test really to, once students are coming in, to say, okay, sort of placing students in class levels, like where do they need more assistance? Where are they already, really skilled? So as opposed to it being a bar, something to bar the gate to entry to the school, it really is just another part of the portrait that we're getting of a student and the kind of, student that they would be here at SJP. It's one piece of information. So we also invite prospective families to visit us. And we have our open house this coming Sunday, October 23rd. Some of you are signed up for it already. We'll start at 1 and we'll go until 4. And everything will be happening throughout. So it's fine to arrive at 3 o'clock. It's fine to arrive at 2:30. It's fine to arrive at the beginning because you'll get to see everything whenever you do drop in. We also invite students to visit us and to spend a morning shadowing another student. And those dates this year are November 2nd, 16th, and 30th. And actually, one of the quotations that I pulled from the survey that I gave students was about Shadow Day. And they just say quickly, when shadowing, I was not only accepted, but felt valued while only being there for a day. And I have a lot of students who are really eager to be the guides on that day because they had that experience. And I think, for all schools, it's a great thing to get in there and really see what the school feels like, to be surrounded by students going about their day, to sit in on some classes. So that's a great thing to do as part of the application. So we don't require an interview. I like to have as much, sort of interaction as I can with the students who are applying, and just to get a sense of them as people. So I do encourage people to come in for tours, to come by the open house, and to have those personal connections wherever we can. And if you would like to get together and talk, I'm always happy to do that. Happy to have you come in. Our deadlines are December 15th for our priority application. Financial aid is December 30th, January 14th for regular application deadline. And I'll address a question too about 10th grade applications and transfers. We do accept transfers into the school. So obviously we have the largest number of spaces available in 9th grade, but we have accepted between 5 and 8, sometimes up to 10 new 10th graders. So it is definitely possible to come in as a 10th grader, although, joining into the 9th grade is a nice thing because you get to be a part of the experience from the beginning. And I'd be happy to discuss that one-on-one with anybody as well. And that's it. And, people can feel free to reach out to me about any aspect of the application process with any questions. I'm happy to get on the phone anytime at all. Send me an email, pick up the phone. My information is available to you, and I can make sure that it goes out with the video that goes out to the community. Charlene is gonna share. So I think that's it for me. Do people have questions about the application process? We're good. Okay. So as you'll see in the chat, some of the questions have been answered that were asked. For Julia and Kristen, maybe a final one. So somebody did ask what the greatest challenge and adjustment you faced academically was transitioning into the school. And I see that Kristen answered that question a little bit, but yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to say about that, just kind of how you overcame those challenges.
Yeah, I think I alluded to that a little bit before with the biology freshman year. Math was challenging, but I think biology was a big adjustment for me as well. But like I said, the after school extra help hours were the most helpful thing to me. I use them almost every single day. And even if you didn't seek that out, your teacher would come to you and say, well, I've noticed you're struggling in this. What can I do to help? Is there any questions I could answer? So if you're not someone who's going to seek it out for yourself, the teachers will seek it out for you. Personally, I seeked it out for myself, but I totally know students who are afraid to seek it out. I'm not sure, but SJP is super welcome community, and I don't know why you would be afraid, but the teachers would come to you if they noticed that you were struggling or didn't understand something, or even if it's outside of academics, they noticed you were struggling like as a person, they would come to help you. Whatever you needed.
Thanks, Julia.
And that's another thing that I'm going to jump in real quick just to piggyback off that. Another thing that we do here and that I help students with is really, role playing those conversations, and students that are uncomfortable going to a teacher, whether it's writing an email or going up and talking to them after school, really sitting down one-on-one and saying, okay, you're coming into Dr. B, bad example because Dr. B is super amazing and approachable, but you're coming into a math class that you don't feel comfortable in. You're struggling in that class. It's never been a class that you've succeeded in for 10 years. You're walking into that classroom with that already in your mindset. How do we change that? How do we really practice going into that classroom? Maybe you ask a question that you already know the answer to, but just to get that ball rolling and really, okay, you're expecting your teacher to say this, what happens if they say that? And really role playing all that out I do that with students quite frequently, either in the AEC or my advisory students who aren't in the AEC program, that they come to me and we work through those difficult conversations with teachers, with students, with their parents. We really encompass all of that. And that's definitely a skill that I know is super important. A student like Julia is a little bit on the outlier side where she, will go and advocate for herself, and she's got that in herself. Some students don't have that. And so we really work and strive for them to find that in themselves.
Matthew, that was exactly the story I was going to prompt, is the story of role playing with students, because it can be hard, to go to a teacher and ask for help, or, just have those conversations. So it's wonderful to have that available. Okay, well, we'd love to see you on October 23rd. If there are more questions now, happy to stick around. But also happy to let you go off to your days and come see us in person. We'd love that. And again, feel free to reach out to me with any questions as they come up.
I want to thank you very much. This was just a wonderful morning. The Carroll community thanks you. St. Joseph Prep. This was incredible. Sasha, Kristen, Julia, Matthew. What a bright light, Julia, it is to see you. And clearly you went from one wonderful place that supported you to another that supported you. And we wish you all the luck in college, and please keep us posted on the big decision. And we look forward, Sasha, to some wonderful families headed your way.
Wonderful. We look forward to it
Again.
too. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. Is Kia still there? Yes, hi, I just saw your question. We can take the ISE. I'd be happy to talk about it. We would like to see one of those other tests. We prefer them, but if there's a compelling reason, to look at the
About that, it
ISE.
was just more around, if you're having the student take an exam and they're so, energy consuming
Right.
for our students, is there one we can converge versus all the schools seem to require different ones? And that's where it was more around.
I see what you mean. Yeah, and that's why we've made the SSAT one of the tests that we take, without preference for either one, because we were seeing that there were students taking multiple tests, and that seems unnecessary. So yeah, we could definitely take the ISE as well.
Thank
you. All right. Okay. Charlene, thanks so much. And Francia, it's nice to see you in person.
Thank
We'll see each other
you.
soon.
Such a
Okay,
lovely
good.
morning. And I think that people felt really informed, and obviously having a parent and a student be able to answer like the tough questions. It's great. And that's what we want, the authenticity of it all. So we really appreciate your time. We really do. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. And Julia and Kristen, thank you so much.
All right. Have
All
a
right.
wonderful day, everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.